Sit here at just about the midway point of the third quarter of 2022. I think the theme for this quarter so far is normalization, especially when it comes to the four horsemen of the economy and real estate. The jobs market, big July jobs report we got last week, much more robust than anticipated. Inflation, as we saw last month, it started to happen, definitely taming. Supply chain and logistics, I have a home self-test for you that I did that you might like to do to figure out on your own that the supply chain is indeed figuring itself out. Politics and geopolitics, the four horsemen, everyone in Washington, I think, needs to start playing really nice with each other so we have a nice backdrop to work in. And the real estate market, definitely slower, but certainly more sustainable as we inch towards a buyer's market. Welcome back to This Week in Mortgage, everybody. My name is Sam Battaglia, your mortgage broker here at Guaranteed Rate in Beverly Hills, right on Cannon. Hope you're having a great week. All right, well, last week we talked about two of the main things the Federal Reserve is going to be looking at. They're going to take their cues from the jobs report, definitely. They're going to get another one before their next meeting in September. But right now they're taking a look at the July jobs report, which was much stronger than anticipated. We got those numbers last Friday. And a couple of things I wanted to look at in that report were, number one, wage inflation, which is very important right now, which did go up, which helps people that are employed keep up with the cost of living. And unemployment actually ticked down to 3.5%, which I believe is a pre-pandemic low for us, and maybe a 50-year low for that matter. So that's good. I still have some questions on how they measure unemployment, but I'll take it for its face value. And then the other thing I always want to look at are what type of jobs are these being created? Are these just jobs or careers? Well, a couple things in Washington, D.C. in the last few weeks. They've actually gotten some things done, which was nice because they seemed like they were asleep for about a year and a half. But we got something I think called the CHIPS Act done, which takes away our dependency on foreign countries to produce our semiconductor chips, which these days is in everything from your toaster to your car. So looks like we're going to start manufacturing and doing some more things here. And something else called the Inflation Act. I guess it was just messaging why they called it that. But there was a lot of green job initiatives and whatnot in there. So they call it whatever they want. As long as there's good green jobs in there, I'm fine with it. And the most important thing is I believe the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Act are definitely going to create careers, not jobs. And I'll just define a career as something where it's mutually beneficial and a long-standing, where you are not easily replaceable and your employer is not easily replaceable, because a job, anybody can be replaced, employer or employee at any time, but careers are people that actually count on each other. So I think this new CHIPS Act and Inflation Act, or whatever they want to call these things in D.C., I think these are going to set us up for more domestic careers, not just jobs, which will help wage inflation and will sustain this very low level of unemployment on a move-forward basis. Moving on to inflation, the Fed's main cue for that matter, it was rampant and out of control for the last few years. This is now normalizing, the theme of this week's show. As we discussed in July, inflation started to come down at the end of June, and that did indeed carry through into July. And when we got the reading this week, inflation is indeed taming, as to be expected. There was no way that it could keep up because the consumer would literally just stop consuming because no one could afford it. So inflation's coming down both on the consumer side and on the wholesale side. And the food and energy, which are the main causes of inflation, which those have chilled out, so everything else is chilled out, as I mentioned a few times over this year. Things are starting to normalize, and again, the consumer just got tired. But food and energy prices are indeed coming down. And again, the consumer got tired, so consumer demand in general is down. But a quick note about the Fed when it came to core inflation, real inflation, whatever you want to call it. A big part of the Federal Reserve's job was actually done by price of food and energy. People only had so much disposable income after they got done with the basic utilities, let's call them, every month. So the Fed may have gotten a little aggressive in their posture. They should have recognized that they did recognize they can't help the inflation that was a problem, but they should have recognized the inflation that they couldn't help was so out of control that it had to help itself, and the basics of economics did indeed take care of that. Moving on to supply chain and logistics, which in my opinion was a huge part of the inflation we dealt with, and I have an actual real-life example here. So this right here is the tea I like to drink. This right here is the coffee I like to drink. For the last 2 years, I couldn't find this tea and this coffee at the same market grocery store that I go to. I literally had to drive to 2 or 3 different stores to find one glass of this and one jar of this, and I'd be lucky if I did. Well, over the last month, some things have happened. I've now been able to find both this tea and this coffee in most stores. And then over the last 2 weeks, what's happened is not only have I been able to find them both in the same store, but I've been able to get a hold of these items both in the morning and at night. Now, this night thing is new for the last 2 weeks. And if you think about this, makes sense. If there's a shortage of things, they're going to run out quick. So that was happening until about a couple weeks ago. Now, when I go to visit the grocery store at night, I'm finding both of these things. I actually did some research on what it takes to get this bottle full of tea and to get this jar of coffee full of coffee beans, I guess. Both of these, the initial things, the tea and the coffee, are both grown outside of our country, shipped here, packaged, labeled here, and then put on a truck here to be sent to the grocery store down the street from me. I can now have full confidence that I don't have to have FOMO and buy 8 of these or 10 of these when I see them. I can just buy my normal amount for my weekly grocery shopping, because I do believe that the supply chain and logistics are figured out with my small examples of iced tea and coffee. And I bet you can go do the same thing with some of your favorite products that you haven't been able to find the scarcity of them, which indeed caused the FOMO of me buying 8 jars of coffee every time I could, which was actually kind of funny. And a little rude to the person behind me in line, but what are you going to do? I like my coffee. So go ahead and do your self-test. Find what you like that you haven't been able to get a hold of, and just notice where and when you can get it. I'm sure you're going to come to the same conclusion I have come to. Supply chain and logistics are indeed figuring themselves out. All right, moving on to politics, geopolitics, the fourth horse. Quick note on this war in Eastern Europe. I really don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. It's gone on about 6 months longer than I expected it to. I don't get it. I don't know what they're doing there. I don't know what the end purpose or cause is. Maybe it's a personal grudge at this point, because that's all it seems like. Because from a political perspective, it makes no sense. And from my what I've seen, from a military perspective, it makes no sense either. So I don't get it. Hopefully it stops. A lot of pain and suffering going on there. But I do know we don't need to send them any more money. We can send them weapons and all that stuff, but no more money. That would actually be nice. We keep sending them money, which is a little annoying because I still have potholes, and so do you, on the street you take to work every day. So hopefully that war gets over with soon so we can stop sending people money, period. Domestic politics. We are coming up on these midterm elections. As we all know, the political situation in our country couldn't be any more toxic than it is. And I'm going to talk about the backdrop for this toxicity. In order for the economy and everything to hum along and normalize like I believe we're doing here, we're going through a normalization process this quarter of every part of the economy, coming off the sugar high we were on. People in Washington need to keep the environment, not the trees and plants. I'm talking about the economic environment, the political environment, somewhat nice, because things have to be able to operate. If things can't operate and people don't feel comfortable and confident, the economy will fall apart, all because of politics. So my advice to the people in Washington is, you are an American first. I don't care about your political party. It means absolutely nothing to me. You're an American first. Take care of Americans. Take care of yourself. And you might just get reelected if you're sincere. Now, we need a good environment in politics to have a good environment in the economy, which at the end of the day, sincerely speaking, that's really all anybody cares about. Most people, at least, for that matter, sadly enough. Moving on, real estate market. Looks like we are indeed headed towards, if not in already, might be a premature call here, but a buyer's market. I've been talking about this for months now. The longer rates stayed elevated, the more the worm would worm its way towards the buyers in their favor. But now the real estate market is definitely slower, but it is very healthy and it is very much sustainable on a long-term basis. Because we can all admit the pace of housing over the last 3 years was insane, and there was no way it could keep up. Now that said, mortgage rates up a little this week, but the 10-year Treasury is still under 3%, which is a real nice gauge and shows you the confidence level in the Federal Reserve to be able to continue raising rates. I guess really isn't that high. And once again, mortgage market, very liquid, very safe, very healthy, which indeed will in turn support the value of all the real estate that you all own. Well, everybody, that is my show for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, any questions about your mortgage, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Have a great rest of the week, headed into the weekend.